This is the iPhone 16, and this is the 16 Plus, the 16 Pro, and the 16 Pro Max. These are non-functional units made for and by case manufacturers so that they can make their cases ahead of time. And just like in previous years, they should be dimensionally accurate, so we can get a very good idea of everything that's changing with the iPhone 16s. Also, shout out to Sonny Dixon once again for helping me source these. And now here's everything new. And I want to start off with the standard iPhone 16. And the biggest change here is the new vertical camera module, just like the previous iPhone 12. Although the camera island is a bit different. For example, the flash is now on the outside, and the entire island is much smaller than with the iPhone 12. Which in a way does actually remind me more of the iPhone 10/10s camera module design. Now, the camera modules are getting a bit bigger too. So on the iPhone 15, I've measured these to be 15 millimeters in diameter, whereas on the iPhone 16, these are a tiny bit bigger at close to 16 millimeters. So yeah, quite funny, iPhone 15, 15 millimeters, iPhone 16, 16 millimeters. Now, the interesting thing here is that the diameter of the camera modules on the iPhone 15 Pro is actually 16.1 millimeters, which makes me think that Apple may be using the same camera sensors as the iPhone 15 Pro and the old 14 Pro, both of which had a slightly larger 48 megapixel sensor than the iPhone 15 did, which would make sense as Apple probably has plenty of stock left for those modules. Another big change is the mute switch, which you can probably see that it is now an action button just like we have on the iPhone 15 Pros. However, if I bring in the 15 Pro right here, you can probably tell that the action button on the 16 is actually smaller. Based on the previous rumors, we were expecting the action button to be getting bigger, not smaller. In fact, some of the other case models that got leaked show the action button as bigger indeed. So we'll have to wait and see if any more leaks come out. Although, I would be surprised if Apple ends up reducing the size of the action button, as it was already quite small on the iPhone 15 Pros, and I've personally found it quite difficult reaching the action button and pressing it on my 15 Pro Max because of that. One more change with the iPhone 16 is that on the other side, we have this brand new capture button right here, like it's been leaked many times before. So this is supposed to be used exclusively for taking photos and videos, and it's also supposed to be capacitive rather than physical, giving you haptic feedback when you've pressed it. And it's going to be seen on our case model as well, as unlike the power button, which does actually press, this capacitive button does not. And the advantage to it being capacitive is that you'll be able to just slide your finger up and down in order to zoom in and out. And apparently, it will also recognize half presses and full presses too, for you to be able to focus and then take the shot. And this is honestly the iPhone 16 feature that I'm excited for the most. As some of you might know, I've actually set the action button on my iPhone 15 Pro Max to always launch the camera. This button would be far more convenient and also a superior way of launching the camera and controlling it. Plus, you'll also be able to use the action button for something else entirely. So how does this capture button actually feel to use? Well, I'm actually a bit surprised about its placement. So I've got average sized hands. My palm is slightly bigger than an iPhone 16. However, when I'm using the iPhone in one hand just like this, I'm actually struggling to even reach the capture button, as hopefully you can all see. Now, if I hold it in two hands like this, then it's far more reachable. But yeah, I do feel like Apple should have definitely placed it just a bit lower. I think that would have made it just a bit easier to reach. But I mean, other than that, the dimensions are exactly the same as before. So 71.6 millimeters width, and then 147.7 millimeters height. It is slightly thicker though, at 8 millimeters thick, compared to 7.8 like the 15, which I'm thinking is a direct result of the larger battery. That's rumored to be 3,561 milliamp hours from 3,349, or about 6% bigger. Which brings me to the iPhone 16 Plus. And here, as you can see, the camera has the same new design as with the iPhone 16. We've also got the new action button and also the brand new capacitive button on the other side, which unfortunately in one hand, it's still quite difficult to reach despite the larger size. In fact, you can see that it aligns perfectly with a capture button on the iPhone 16. So no changes here despite the larger size. If I use both of my hands to hold it like this, then the button becomes far easier to press, just like with the iPhone 16. So I do believe that this is how Apple envisions you using this button. The height and the width are exactly the same as with the iPhone 15 Plus, whereas the thickness is now 8 millimeters, So same as the iPhone 16 as opposed to 7.8 like before. However, unlike the iPhone 16, the 16 Plus is actually said to be getting a smaller battery this time around at 4006 mAh as opposed to 4383, which is a pretty significant 9% drop, probably to push more people towards the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Now, before I move on to the Pro models, I want to show you probably the most unique charger that you've ever seen from our sponsor, Ugreen. Ugreen's tiny RG65-watt charger comes in two cute robotic designs for whatever your style is. While connected to power, the LED display shows when you're fast charging, as well as trickle charging, fully charged or no device is connected. At 65 watts, your desk buddy can charge an M3 MacBook Air to 51% in just 30 minutes. You can also charge a variety of devices with their one USB-A and two USB-C ports, which is great for when you're traveling. So on top of looking unique, they are also way more useful than Apple's dual-port 35-watt charger too. And thanks to their GaN fast chips, these guys offer 95% energy conversion. This makes the devices smaller and the emissions lower, helping reduce CO2 emissions by 12,000 tons a year. Check out Ugreen's RG65 watts by using the links below. Which brings us to the iPhone 16 Pro. Now, the biggest change here is that the 16 Pro now has a larger 6.3-inch display as opposed to 6.1 on the iPhone 15 Pro. I've also measured both, and the iPhone 16 Pro is now 149.66 millimeters tall instead of 146.6, so that is 3 millimeters taller, and 71.4 millimeters wide as opposed to 70.6. And my measurements do seem to exactly match the lead dimensions from before. So how does it actually feel in the hand given this new size? Well, to me, it honestly feels exactly the same. Like, I can still reach all four corners quite easily, so I don't think that this will be an issue for most people. And the fact that it's also getting wider means that the typing experience should also be a bit better than on the iPhone 15. Although, as you can see, the 16 Pro is nowhere near as wide as the 15 Pro, so that's still the one to go for if you want the most comfortable typing experience. I've also measured the same thickness as before at 8.3 millimeters, despite the 16 Pro being rumored to come with a larger battery at 3,355 mAh as opposed to 3,274, so a 2.5% larger one. Aside from this, we can also see the action button on the left-hand side, which is the same size as on the iPhone 16, so a bit smaller than on the iPhone 15 Pro. Which, again, I do think that this is an error with our case models, as I would expect Apple to keep them at least the same size as we have now on the 15 Pros, if not even make them bigger. And we can also see that brand new capture button on the right. Other than that, the diameter of the camera modules appears to be exactly the same as on the iPhone 15 Pro, so that's 16.1 millimeters thick. Although, there are some camera changes expected here. More specifically, the ultra-wide module is said to be getting updated to a brand new 48 megapixel sensor from the current 12, and then the telephoto is said to be getting updated to the same 5x module that we had with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, as opposed to the 3x that we had on the 15 Pro. Which brings us to the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So I measured the iPhone 16 Pro to be 77.6 millimeters wide, as opposed to 76.7, and then 163 millimeters tall as opposed to 160, both of which do match with the leaked dimensions. Now, when I hold the iPhone 16 Pro Max in my hand, it for sure feels quite a bit beefier than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And one of the reasons why I switched to the iPhone 15 Pro Max from my 14 Pro was because it finally got narrower and more comfortable to use than the 14 Pro Max from before. And this was one of my worries with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, that it would once again be going backwards to something that is bigger and less comfortable. However, it's not quite as bad as you may think. In fact, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is now more similar to the old iPhone 14 Pro Max when it comes to its dimensions. I measured their width to be exactly the same at 77.6 millimeters. The 16 Pro Max is taller at 163 millimeters as opposed to 160.7. However, this won't impact usability as much as their actual width. Now, I've held all three in my hand, and I have to say that in terms of comfort, the iPhone 16 Pro Max actually falls in between the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So it's not as comfortable as the 15 Pro Max was, due to the increased width, but it is more comfortable than the iPhone 14 Pro Max was thanks to that more rounded frame. Thickness-wise, the 16 Pro Max has the same 8.3mm width as the 15 Pro Max and the 16 Pro. Although the 16 Pro Max is said to be getting the biggest battery that Apple has ever had in an iPhone, at 4,646 mAh from 4,422, or a 5% increase. There was a recent leak suggesting that Apple would be increasing the battery density, which makes me think that they're only doing this on the Pro models, hence why their thickness is remaining the same, but the battery capacity is increasing. Aside from this, I've measured the diameter of the camera modules to be exactly the same on both at 16.1 millimeters. And just with the 16 Pro, the 16 Pro Max is said to be getting that new 48 megapixel ultra-wide. However, it is also said to be getting a brand new main sensor of a size close to 1 inch. Although based on my measurements, it doesn't seem like the main module is changing, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Speaking of changes, our Discord competition has now ended, and it is time to finally announce the winner of our iPhone 15 giveaway. But first, let's go over the top 10 submissions. We had Glorious Graffiti, Motherboard Madness, Grateful Go, Ethereal Earth, Lost Views, Half Here, Minimalist Interstellar, Pantheon, Retro Ride, and Sparking Vision. In the 10th place, we have Pantheon, and in the 9th, we have Ethereal Earth. In the 8th, there's a tie between Glorious Graffiti, Minimalist Interstellar, and Motherboard Madness. In the 5th place is Sparking Vision, and in the 4th, Grateful Go. Now for the top 3 submissions. In the 3rd place is Half Here. 2nd place goes to Lost Views, and the winner is Retro Ride. So congratulations to Modi, who has won an iPhone 15 and also a 1-year Wallpapers Full Access subscription. But wait, we're not done yet. The users who have proposed Lost Views and Half Here also get a 1-year Wallpapers Full Access subscription, while everyone else in the top 10 receives a 3-month subscription. And of course, all of you get to see Retro Ride turned into an actual pack for wallpapers that you can all use. So stay tuned to the channel for updates on the development of the pack and also for more competitions in the future. All in all, we are indeed getting some notable changes all across the board. From the action button now being present on all 4 models, to the new capture button, to the redesigned camera module on the standard models, as well as the larger sizes on the Pros. I'm definitely looking forward to the 16s. For me, the capture button is going to be extremely useful, but do let me know, which feature are you looking forward to the most? You can get our latest wallpapers by using the link below, and do subscribe for more iPhone 16 updates as soon as we have them. I'm Daniel, this means ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH signing out. Cheers.